All right, we are in the middle of mealtime right now, and Cooper ate first. His buddy Lucky is eating now. This is their roadmap to success. So basically, I think we have two dogs that have various insecurities. Cooper is, I wouldn't say way insecure, but a lot more insecure than Lucky is. Lucky is more confident. But they both have their own problems from insecurities in different degrees. Cooper is very uncertain about a lot of things, and I think that impacts and creates some nervousness, and that's why he's destroying things. I don't think he has separation anxiety, but he's heading in that direction because he doesn't really have a lot of rules and structure. As a result of that, I think that he thinks that he needs to protect or be with his human at all times. When his human leaves, he tries to self-soothe, and he does that by chewing up new things that are in the place. So when we have a dog that is being destructive or eating things that are inappropriate, I do recommend kennel training for that. Now he's already kennel trained, but basically just putting him in a kennel as long as he can't be supervised can make sure that our apartments and our house doesn't get destroyed. He doesn't eat anything that's inappropriate that might injure him. Now, when it comes to kennel training, you don't want your dog to spend more than 5 hours in the kennel. That will create stress, but in this situation, it sounds like that would be an appropriate length of time, or he'd be in there for less time than that. We want to prevent the dog from doing the wrong thing for a long enough period of time where they just get in the habit of doing the right thing. Now, to help him start feeling a little bit more confident, we went over some rules that we can incorporate. One of the rules would be no furniture for 30 days or as long as he's still destroying things. The same thing for Lucky. I really don't like to enforce rules. We'll talk about that here in a second. He worked really well with that. But I like to have the rules consistent for both dogs. I don't want to have one dog allowed on the furniture and the other one isn't, because that furniture, the height that you sit, has a correlation to your rank or status. When the human's leaving, the dog should walk behind them or at the same time out the door, not walk in front of them. Let me see, other rules. When the human is eating, the dog should not be within about 7 feet. My rule would be there's a rug around this table, there's a rug around the table in front of the TV. I would say when a human is eating in either one of those locations, the dogs are not allowed to be on the rug. The rest of the time they can, but when people are eating, they can't. Now, the Guardian talked about one time they had a house party, and the dog would not eat the treats. If people were in the room, they would disagree with it, but as soon as they left the room, the dog would try to go and snatch stuff. I like to recreate situations where the dog doesn't behave how we want, so we can teach them by breaking the activity down into small individual steps and helping the dog practice one step at a time over and over until they master the behavior we want for that step. Then we move to the second step. So in this case, instead of actually trying to do this when we have a cocktail party and we have a lot of guests and we're being a good host and we're cleaning up and all that, our mind is in 10 different places. What I would suggest, we get a piece of roast beef. We go sit it in the microwave so it has a nice aroma to it. And we go sit down at the table, put it on the table and watch some TV. The dog smells it. Every time they try to come near it, we disagree as soon as it goes onto the carpet or the area rug. So this is the way we're teaching the dog, when you smell food, you're not allowed on this rug. And we're doing it without the pressure of having guests and being a host and being distracted. You can use this approach for anything, any behavior problem that your dog has. Analyze the situation, identify first what is the dog trying to accomplish. In this case, I want to get some tasty snacks. Okay, well, we don't want the dog to get those, so we have to teach them the behavior that we want. In this case, you're not allowed to go on the carpet when there's food present. And by repping it enough, eventually the dog just gets a habit of doing that over and over again. Now, we talked about other ways to incorporate structure, such as petting with a purpose. So both dogs nudge and scratch when they want attention from the guardian. If the guardian consistently replies to that, then they're going to consistently do that. So what I'd like the guardian to do is anytime the dog scratch or nudge or bark or whatever they do to ask for attention, tell the dog that it has to sit. As soon as it sits, pet them under the chin, say the word sit, not good dog, just the word sit. And then you can pet the dog for an hour if you want. But if you just want to pet the dog's not nudging or scratching you, still ask it to sit. This way the dog understands, I can't tell the human what to do, I have to ask the human what to do. And I have to pay for it with obedience. The more that the dog accepts that transition, the better they feel about the human's leadership. Humans have to demonstrate to dogs that they are a leader. We can't, for a lot of dogs, we have to actually show them. We think, I provide you this great place to live, I provide you food, I provide you toys, and the dog's like, I didn't see you build that house, I didn't see you hunt that food, I didn't see you make my toy. So you don't get credit for those things. But we just got done feeding them, and we enforced a boundary out of the kitchen. And both dogs responded really, really well to that. That's a great way for the human to demonstrate that they're in charge by just simply disagreeing with the dog and putting it in a situation where the dog makes a mistake in a training situation where we can correct it and teach it the right behavior, and after a while the dog just does that right behavior without needing any mindfulness, any correction, any supervision. And this is how we can train our dogs to do the behavior that we want. So make sure we're not petting the dogs on demand, and in fact we're actually petting them with a purpose, or petting to say thank you. I'd like the guardian to also get in a habit of rewarding desired actions and behaviors. The dog comes to us, we pet it and say come. The dog sits down next to us, we pet it and say sit. Simply acknowledging these simple things that we often overlook and take for granted can tell the dog sitting in front of my human makes them very, very happy. That's something I'm going to do more and more often because I want to make my human happy. Now, we talked about no furniture. One of the things I suggested is because Cooper destroys dog beds. Well, if we have a dog bed where we put Cooper in the kennel, then we can protect and prevent him from destroying it. And the more time that he spends on the dog bed, the more comfortable he gets with it, the less inclined he's going to be to do that. Now, we can also do things to put the dog in a position to succeed by taking him for some good exercise before we leave. Although he has plenty of good chew toys, he wants to chew on dog beds or other inappropriate items. So basically, if we have the dog bed out there and we have him in the kennel, he doesn't have that opportunity to do it unless he's supervised. And when he's supervised, we're going to make sure he doesn't do it. Licking is a precursor for chewing. So if we notice Cooper is licking the kennel or the dog bed, we would want to disagree at that point. Now, to train the dog to go to a dog bed on command, I've done this, we didn't have a chance to do this during the session, but what I do is I grab a high-value treat, let the dog sniff it, and I toss it onto the dog bed. I give a different dog bed name designation for each dog bed. So if the dog goes maybe the one in the living room, we call Beach. So every time I toss a treat onto the dog bed, the dog walks over. The second it touches it with its lips, after it starts chewing, I say the word Beach, just once. After we do that enough, the dog will start going over to the dog bed looking to see if there's a treat there. The other way I do it is if the dog goes in the bedroom or goes in the kitchen or somewhere else, I drop a treat on there and I just observe. I don't point it out. I wait for the dog to discover it on their own, and I say the word Beach right after it licks it up off of the dog bed. Third way I do is I lure the dog onto the dog bed, put it in a sit or an LAY, and then pop the treat in their mouth and say the word Beach. After we've done that enough, the dog will start going to the beach on their own. At first we do this to entice the dog to go there. After a while we'll do that to reward the dog for going there. So if we're watching TV, the dog walks up and goes under the TV, which is the best place to keep your dog bed if you can. We say the word Beach. Even if we don't have a treat with us, we're still going to associate the command word with the action. And the more we do that, the more the dog is going to want to go to the beach and hang out. Now, if one dog consistently beats the other dog, you might practice this with the other dog in another room or out on the balcony or something like that, so that the slower dog gets the reward and starts to get motivated to do that as well. I asked the guardian earlier if he fed the dog a lot of treats, and because one of the dogs had a weight problem, he doesn't do that a lot. But a lot of my clients, if they have multiple dogs, they go so out of their way to make sure that they're being fair to the dogs that they override things that are beneficial. So I pull out one treat and I say, come. Whoever comes first and sits down gets that treat. Whoever comes second doesn't get a darn thing. After a while, the second dog's like, I'm going to get there first, so I get that treat. When both dogs come and give me the same result, then I'll give them the same reward. But if one dog comes right away and I reward it, the second dog comes a minute later and gets the same reward, what's my motivation to do what I want to do? One of the things for Cooper here is I'd like the guardian to go to Lowe's or Home Depot or other places that are not dog specific and with a lot of treats. He's a good looking dog. I'm sure a lot of people want to pet him. When they ask to pet him, we want to teach him demand. So what we're going to do is say, oh, would you like to give him a treat? Well, I'd love to give him a treat. We're going to put our treat in the hand and hold the hand motion that I showed you. If the dog's head is here, curl your fingers just a little bit so he can't see that you have a treat in your hand, and go at an arc over his head. Don't just go vertical and don't go horizontal. Go at an arc. They'll track up, and then eventually they put their butt down to get more elevation. As soon as the butt hits the ground, lower that treat. As soon as they tilt their head down and licks it off their hand, say the command word, not good sit, just sit, and then tickle under their chin to facilitate that nose-up orientation that proud dogs have. Then hand a treat to the person who wants to pet him. They will usually mimic what you just did. If they don't say sit as soon as the dog sits, make sure you say it for them. Remember, anytime you're giving your dog a command word or you're correcting or rewarding the dog, it needs to happen within 3 seconds of the dog doing it. Another thing to remember, anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're reinforcing. So if you come home from work and your dog is jumping around and excited and you pet it, you're reinforcing and amplifying that excitement. Excited is not necessarily happy. Same thing with not doing anything. If your dog is chewing up the dog bed and you don't say anything, then as far as the dog's concerned, you're giving 2 thumbs up to my destruction of the dog bed. So we're going to disagree and we're going to use the escalating consequences that I went over. Remember, the first one is to hiss. Second, with the same intensity or matching or exceeding the dog's energy level. Second thing is we stand up abruptly, turn to face our hips until the dog's stationary, then we take 2 steps backwards. Third thing we do is we march directly at the dog until the dog turns sideways to us. And then we go back to the second consequence. We pivot and where we follow the dog. As soon as it's stationary, we take those 2 steps back. Then we can go back and do what we're doing. The fourth consequence is the leash timeout. We put the leash on, we step on the leash, giving the dog just enough room to stand or sit. As soon as it sits on its own, we don't tell it to sit. I take the foot that's on the leash and I slide it towards the dog to take the tension off the leash. I wait for the dog to lay down. When it does that and it's calm, again, I don't say it, I don't tell it to do it. As soon as the dog's calm, I take my foot off the leash very subtly so it doesn't realize it. Now it's going to get up and wander around dragging the leash. Now, dragging the leash is dangerous if it's unsupervised, so we should only do this under supervised conditions. After a while, you won't have to use all 4 consequences. You just use the first 3, then the first 2, then the first 1. But you can use multiple together. I might hiss, stand up, and rush at the dog all simultaneously if the dog's about to do something very dangerous. Let's see. I also, we went over the leadership exercise. That's the video we went over. I went through instructions on that. It's a pretty long video, but it shows how to do the exercise. I'd like the guardian to practice that exercise every single day with both dogs at least twice a day. Preferably with the dogs taking a nap in between each practice iteration. We'd like to get up to the point where the dog will wait for up to 15 minutes within about 7 to 10 days for both dogs. Now, if the dog gets up and goes in the other room, I would close the door to the other room. It's a smaller area here in Hollywood, so he doesn't have as much room to run away, but we don't want the dog to say, screw it, I don't want to participate in this game. Let me see, the other thing we went over was a focus exercise. Cooper's got a great focus, I just don't think it had been tapped into. So the more that we can do that, the more that we can help the dogs redirect their attention to us, and we can redirect them away from things they might get into trouble with. Now, Cooper, being the more submissive of the 2 dogs, he has a tendency to roll over right away and give his belly. I want the guardian to make sure that we immediately stop petting him as soon as he does that. If you're petting him, he's nice and relaxed and gradually rolls over, that's fine. But if he pops over immediately, yeah, it's too submissive, it's too much, and we don't want to reward that. The other thing is, Cooper, when he sometimes has bones or toys, Lucky will come over and snatch them from him. The guardian's going to need to make sure that he is interceding in that case, and so if Lucky gets up and starts going to where Cooper is, chewing on a bone, hisses at him. If the hiss like I said, if the hiss off camera, if the hiss spooks Cooper, then maybe we just go to the third consequence. We stand up and we march and get between them and march Lucky away. March towards him until he turns sideways, then go sit back down. If we do this, same thing with having control over food and access to food and who has access to the kitchen while another dog's eating. It's another example for us to do things that the dog sees us as an authority figure and gives us more credit. And for both dogs, I think the more that they see the human as the authority figure, the less of a burden of responsibility they're going to feel on their shoulders, and that's going to dissipate a lot of the stress that is resulting in a lot of the problems that they're having. Now, for Cooper, because dogs get over things by moving forward, I would really like to see the guardian try to enroll him in a dog walking program with an experienced dog walker that's going to be walking with multiple other dogs. We certainly don't want it to be a negative scenario for him, so make sure that the dog walker is screening dogs and matching them with dogs of appropriate energy. If you have to go through a couple dog walkers, that's fine. Find the right situation for him so we don't make it worse. But if he finds some buddies that he learns how to deal with and he goes on walks with them, that helps them because they're moving forward and they don't have to interact with the dog because they're moving. And so it helps in a number of different ways. I'm probably forgetting about some other things, but the guardian can always call or text me if he has any questions on anything we went over or anything new that popped up. All right, well, that's going to be the roadmap to success for Lucky and Cooper. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.